It is officially recording. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is our third session on OneNote, and today we're working on the advanced features. So we have Dorinda and Deb here today from PMA to guide us through this. Lindsay is going to put into the chat, if it's not already there, the PDF of the training for today so that you can follow along. If you have any questions, though, feel free to reach out to us afterwards and we'll be happy to walk you through anything.
All right, excellent. Well, thanks for that. It is part three, and we're digging deep today. We're going into the advanced OneNote functions. Of course, what is advanced to some people, it may not feel advanced to others, and vice versa. So we're going to kind of run the gamut of a bunch of different things as we walk through this. Once again, I'm not sharing a deck today. I'm going right into OneNote, and we're doing it right from OneNote, so that way we can move around and actually get real time. I hope your hands are on your mouse right now and that you're also ready to kind of execute in OneNote, because the same is true. You get more out of that kinesthetic learning when you're actually doing while listening and while we're talking together. So I appreciate you doing that. In part three, if as you look through, maybe you've had a chance to look through the learning guide that goes with this. If not, just know that you have that in the background for after the fact. Some of the things that we want to accomplish, this is not just advanced for the sake of being advanced, right? One of the things that we're trying to accomplish is to pick up speed with things, right? I think a lot of the first two, yeah, I would say, our first part, we focused mostly on productivity gains, right? Things that were just helping you get more organized. And because you were more organized, maybe you could put your hands on things a little bit faster. So feeling a little bit more organized, a little bit more productive. In the second one, I think we focused maybe more on collaboration, right? The using your OneNote notebooks with other people on your team and thinking about how to make that as smooth as possible. And in this third one, we're really in a lot of ways going to talk about using this as more of a speed tool, how to make this a faster tool all in all, right? How to get in and out of it more quickly, how to find things more quickly, but also how to use it in ways that enhance kind of the higher level productivity. So the things that happen when you have that bird's eye view of your whole day or your whole week or even a whole dashboard of information. And so I'm going to help you try to build your system. We've been kind of talking about little pieces of the system along the way. Today, I'm going to dig right into what a weekly review system would be using each of the techniques. So there's a lot of things that you could put into your system, and that's very much your choice. I'm going to hit on a few of the things that I think make the biggest difference in keeping us feeling kind of on top of all of our stuff, right? So that's really where I'm going today. We'll talk a little bit more about the dashboard as we have in the past, and maybe tie this just a little bit to AI some AI concepts, because I'm starting to get a lot of questions about using this with AI. Now, all of that said, I'll give you the quick preview of next week, next time we get together. In part four, that's when we'll talk about the actual transition point between OneNote and Outlook, OneNote and Teams, OneNote and AI, OneNote and some of your phone apps, right? So really thinking about kind of those connection points. But for today, we're going right after the things that bring you some speed. So one of the things, and then I'm going to hit you with just a handful of power tips right out of the gate that I think are just ways of moving more quickly through this tool. One of the ones that has become helpful, this is actually a fairly new feature in OneNote that I mentioned very quickly in the first section, and I wanted to come back and hit it because it is something to think about, which is storing for organization. And so when you're storing for organization, one of the things that seems to make a big difference is your ability to sort your pages fairly quickly. So there's two ways to think about this. One way is to think about something you're doing in your sorting or in your labeling that allows you to sort quickly. So I'm going to jump up to one where I know I've got a few more pages. I'll pull my AI knowledge base because I'm working in this one quite a bit lately, and I've been really good with this one because this is a new notebook. So like you, I had bad habits and bad behaviors, and as I've evolved with this, I get better. So my newer notebooks have a little bit kind of a little bit more organization to them. So this first one would be an example of talking about just taking the time to actually put a good heading on your pages. And one of the things that I'm now, it took me forever, but I'm really now in the habit of doing it. It saved me so many times, which is to actually put a date stamp on the front end of each page. Now, one of the things to pay attention to there is if you believe you'll have a lot of pages and you want to be sorting those pages, it is smart to actually put those year, then month, then day. If you can get into that habit of year, month, day, because that's going to, let me see if I can find one here where I have a bunch of yeah, here's one where I have a bunch of different, this is a good example of, okay, this one, when I came in, I did not do it. So I'm going to come in right away. I'm going to go ahead and add that piece to it. And now I've got that date in there. Let's get my 26, my 6 in there. Now I've got that date in there. Now I can actually sort these. Now you can sort them alphabetically, which is kind of a nice thing when you have the dates in there. You can also, though, go ahead and sort by date created or sort by date modified. So, just kind of, but a lot of times the alpha is what's important for people. So being able to have both either a date sort or an alpha sort will be dependent on what kind of job do you do in actually bringing a good title to the page. So these seem like things that take you a little bit of time in the beginning, but they speed you up when you're going to find things, when you're going to pull information. So just think in terms of, there are the things I do to drop information quickly, and there are the things I do to take an extra minute there to make it easy to retrieve information quickly. That's where probably I think a lot of the value is being able to retrieve it later on. So if you know you'll have to go back and look at this over time, then taking the time to actually make sure that you've set yourself up for easy access. Now, since we're talking about retrieving, let's just remind people of a couple of key speed points when it comes to search. So Control F and Control E are your friends, right? So when I know some of you love your speed keys. We certainly talked about speed keys in Teams, and we've talked about them in Outlook. So here we go. We have to talk about speed keys in OneNote. When you're here, Control F and Control E. So what does Control F do? So if I hit Control F, that gives me my on page, right? So this gives me my on page. So if I want to search quickly for the word decisions, right? That's where I'm going to be able to come in, Control F, and just hit the word decisions. And it's going to show me that this is actually showing up 6 times on this page. So Control F, and then I just hit that down arrow, and it will take me down to each time the word decisions shows up. It's highlighted for me, and I can roll through all 6 of them and back up again. So Control F for finding things quickly on a page. Now that gives you one extreme. We can go the other extreme as well. Control E, right? That's my all notebooks search. So if I have no idea where to look for this thing that I'm about to look for, and I don't know what book it's in or what section or what page, the fastest way is to go to Control E. And so this is where I'll type the word national because I'm looking for meeting notes from a national meeting, and I see that come up. Again, quick reminder when you do this, I'm seeing all notebooks, and you may get a lot of different answers. So you can see I've got a lot of responses. These will always be in order of the most recent things that you've done, since there's a high likelihood that you'd want to actually pull from something recent. So I can see this because it's the page that I was actually looking for, the one that I just pasted in a few minutes ago. And then I can see any place where the word is going to show up in the title. And then
Hey,
finally on
Deb,
page. Yep, go ahead.
we're not actually able to see that smaller
Are
pop-up
you
box that you've got. Yeah.
Okay. You know what? Let me share thank you for that. Let me share the context window instead of the software window. That should save us here. Let's go to the entire screen. Try it again. Seeing it? Now, yes. Okay, awesome. Right. So Control F get you to the page. Control E, right? So Control F, I'm putting it in right here, decision, just to repeat that so I can make sure that you can see it all. Thanks for that, Dorinda. Right? Doesn't help if people can't see it. They think there's something wrong with their system. So this is where it's marching me right through the page, right? So when you get that one, when you're looking for, when I do Control E, it's going to give me the search for all the notebooks. And then whatever word I put in, it's going to show it to me in order of recent picks. Then anytime it's showing up in the actual title, and then anytime it's showing up on the page. right? Now, in a situation like this where it shows up a lot, so let's just use the example here where I've said, yeah, it's not this one I want, and it's not one where it's actually in the title. It could be any of these 72. Two options, right? One is you could, if you said, you know what, now that I see these, I think I know which notebook it's actually in. So you really could actually go off to that notebook and then fine tune this right here by dropping into just this notebook. You could do that. But the other thing that if you still don't know where it is, you may want to go ahead and pin your results. So this is what happens when you pin your results. Now you have the ability to kind of hold that search and go down and actually find specifically what you're looking for if you can. So let's say I come down here and I say, okay, yeah, I'm looking for that word national. I'm going to drop in here to this Harvard page of notes. I'm going to look and say, nope, that wasn't it. Now I can scroll down and go a little bit further. And these are going to be in order by date right now. Again, the beauty of this pinning option is that you can change that date modified and actually sort by title or by section, right? So I can see that's by alphabetical order. And now I can very quickly get to something that I'm looking for, maybe for the FDA, right? As an example, right? So I'm finding that word by section or by date or by title. So two speed keys, right? That Control F or Control E, no matter where you are in OneNote, will serve you well in terms of finding things on a page or finding things in your notebook. Let me head on back to my section here. And again, I'm going to come back up to part 3. A couple of things that speed things up for you. One of them is actually getting in the habit of not only just using a good page header, but also some consistent things that you put on every meeting page in particular. And one of the examples of that would be this kind of summary actions links title. So we showed you how to create templates in the very first section, right? In part 1, I'll do a quick review of that here just so you see what we're talking about. But I've created a top section template. And all this is just a simple template that you could create, right, where this sets me up with that table that is so common for all of us, right, where we may have a summarization of a key point. We may have actions that pop out of the meeting. We may have web links. You could make this anything you want, but if you find that you're coming up with something like this as a way of summarizing a meeting on a consistent basis, it may make sense for you to go ahead and turn that into a template. Right. So in a situation like this top, what I call my top section template, I could be jumping into a meeting. I'm going to drop over into my work hub meeting. I could jump into my meeting list and add a meeting page, but instead of just adding a blank meeting page, this is where instead what I might do is insert my template as a starting place. So I know we're about to have a meeting. I know I'm going to want to summarize the key points of the meeting, the actions from the meeting, and pick up any links that I need to pick up. So instead of just the blank page, I'll actually start with inserting, and I'll insert the template that I created. Now, quick reminder of how to do this, right? So if I take and again, I'm gonna use mine just to get it here. That's my top section template. For you to create a template like this is really going to be as simple as create the page, right? So you could add anything you'd like into it. So for example, on any action list, you'd say, Deb, you can't have an action list without inserting a column to the right of that, where in that column, you're going to put due date because everybody wants a due date on an action, right? So I'll go ahead and add that in. At this point, I'll just space that bad boy out a little bit so that I've got enough space to do everything I want, kind of get that comfortably in there. And then once that's done, in order to save it as a template, remember, you're just coming over to templates, page templates, and then down at the bottom, save current page as template. And then you can name this whatever you like. Now I name this top section template. I'll call it something slightly variant from that, right? Top template, we'll call it. Right? And I'll go ahead and save that so that it's easy for me to access. That will now be saved in with the rest of my templates. So the next time you come in and you hit templates, you'll be able to pull it from there. So once again, if I'm coming back out to my work hub and I'm popping in and I'm ready to start a meeting, or I'm ready to prepare for a meeting and I want to create something in there, or even if I dropped in and just started taking notes in a meeting and I didn't have time to do the thing, then what I would do is I would come in and then hit insert page template. And when I insert page template, I'd come over to my templates, choose that, and then I'd be starting from a place of actually having kind of that key organization right at the top. So that goes along with this idea of one of the things to do to stay more organized in your OneNotes is just to have some things consistently that you're doing every time you dump notes. I think it's really common for people to just go ahead and dump a bunch of notes in. Maybe you just jump in and start, keeping the typing on something, but to then have categories to bring things back to is particularly helpful. Now, the other thing that kind of goes along with this, and again, I'm kind of building on what we've talked about in prior meetings. In the very first section, we talked about tags a little bit. And so this ties now to that idea of tagging, right? So once again, if I'm coming in and I've got a series of notes and I'm going to go, let me just go find a good example again of this. Let me come up to my work hub and I'll pop into, let's find one that kind of works well for our purpose. I don't want to, it's always challenging because you don't want to necessarily mess with your real stuff, but at the same time, here we go. So we'll pull into a meeting with Jeff. So in this case, right, I'll pull the notes down and I'll want to go ahead and create some organization around these meeting notes. Now here's a power tip. How many of you, just give me a yes in the comment section here or in the chat if you're starting to use Copilot or AI in some way? Give me a yes. Right, nice. Okay, so you know that one of the easiest things you can ask Copilot to do, or one of the easiest things you can ask, and by the way, tell me about what AI you're using while you're here, if you would. Is it Copilot? Is it Chat? Is it Claude? Like what version of AI, what LLM are you using? Chat, Copilot, good. So it looks like a split between Copilot and Chat. Okay, so you know as well as I do, one of the easiest things you can do is to ask Copilot to take a page of notes and actually do something with it, right? Whether it's summarize it or find the actions in it. So this ties in here because that's a great habit to have. Think now about how you can tie that into the work that you're doing in OneNote. So if I'm working in OneNote, I could easily come in here and ask Copilot to summarize this. So one of the things to keep you organized is to really get in the habit of trying to create a one sentence summary at the top of every page. So if I drop a page of notes in here, or I form a page of notes in here, coming in and turning this into that one page summary is just a great habit to be in that mode for. So here's the suggestion. And I say one page because I mean one sentence rather, because I think sometimes the summaries can be longer than the notes themselves if you don't give it a little bit of guidance. So coming into your Copilot and actually saying, create a one sentence summary, that's going to actually give you the true topic of what's on this page right at the top and serve you pretty well. Right. So that one page that one sentence summary. And again, if you're more comfortable with Chat, you could absolutely copy and paste this right into Chat and get the exact same thing, get that one sentence. So I'm going to take my one sentence here and I'm going to pop this right at the beginning. Now, again, I always want to try to give myself either a tag or at the very least a symbol that tells me, right, what this is that I'm looking at. So if it's a summary, I've got a tag in here for that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit summary and control paste so that way I can see the summary right on it, right? And my summaries are highlighted green with my little tag. And now I can see that that's one that's been summarized. And you can see that just does a nice job of giving me a kind of a quick overview of exactly what's on this page. Right? So two things went on there. One, we asked Copilot to give us the summary. Awesome. Pull that right to the top. Second thing, we actually used our tags. Now, why would I use my tags? Well, because there may be a point where I want to look in this notebook and actually look at all of the summaries at the same time, right? If I wanted to look at all the summaries, in other words, I wanted to look at all the tags, remember where we'd go? We'd have to pull over here to find tags, right? And if I came over to find tags, right, and I'm going to refresh my results so I get access to everything, that's where I can see, right, just from today, I can see that one Gemini summary in there. So if I know I'm looking for my summaries and I want to find, and there may be a couple. So let me grab like everything. If you look at your tags here, you can see you've got today's. I could pick everything that's in this notebook, right? So now if I'm looking at notebooks, I can see I've got 3 summaries in here, one for Claude, one for Gemini, and one for Notebook LM. Right. So by having these summaries, this gives me real fast access to be able to kind of understand exactly what's going on in this notebook without sitting and going page by page, which is always going to speed up your process, right? Is to create those summaries. While we're thinking about that, right? So, and everybody remembers how to create a tag, right? You're just coming into your list of tags, get rid of all the ones that you don't use. Rule of thumb here is that you probably don't want to have more than 10 to 15 tags because you probably don't use more than 10 to 15 tags. I'd say you probably use less than 10 most times. So to clean up your tags, just come in and actually hit customize tags. And this is where you can do 3 things. I can go ahead and create a brand new tag as we just did with summary. So you too could come in and say, yeah, I'm going to create a tag just for summarizing. I'm going to choose the symbol that I like to go with that, and you get to choose it, right? You can choose anything you like. I happen to use the push pin. You could use anything, right? I'll use the paperclip on this one. You can change the font color. You can change the highlight, right? So it's your call, whatever you want to do there. We'll go yellow on this one and then hit OK. Right. Of course, I already have one, so it's not going to let me, but that would go ahead and create that summary tag for you. Now, once you have a tag, one thing you may want to do is move it up to the top, because if you just created it, it's likely that you really want to use that. So if you have a tag like that you really like, and I'm gonna choose the one that I just created actually was AI use cases, right? So we're probably all in that place of thinking about what are the different use cases for using AI in my world. And I'm definitely in that place for both myself and my clients. And so AI use case is going to be a helpful one. So I'm going to take that AI use case and I'm just going to push it up, right? So I'm going to push it up till I get it up. In fact, I'm going to put it right beneath summary. Right now, when we're up there, just take a quick look at those ones at the top. They have something special going. They have the control, the number. So summary, for example, right now says control +7. What that's doing is for the top 9 tags, it's giving you speed keys. So I now know I can either use the drop down to tag something, or I can use control 7 every single time I want to summarize, right? So when I want to tag something with summary, I can do that. So I'm going to come right over to another one of these. Let's use Nate's. Right, I'll come back up to Nate's. I'll do the same thing. I'll go ahead and summarize it. So I'll use the prompt to summarize. And by the way, I try to keep a new section in every notebook I have now called prompt library or prompt. So even in my work hub, I've got specifically either a page in some cases, or I've got in this case, I put it in my dashboard. I have my prompt that says, okay, if you have a prompt that you're using a lot in this notebook, go ahead and put that prompt in here so you don't have to look for the prompt anymore. Right, so I just threw a prompt in here that said, okay, ChatGPT, you're an extremely organized executive assistant. Organize these notes into the following buckets. And I gave it the buckets that are in my weekly review. So that would be a standing prompt. So I could also add another one here. Right. And with this one, I'll give it the summarizing prompt, right? Using one sentence. Summarize this page. Right, so it's just an easy one to kind of put off, right? We'll call this one the one-page summary, so I know exactly what it is later, and save it in with the rest of my prompts. Right, so I'll pull that down. Now I've got multiple prompts going on. And so now I've saved these in pretty much exactly the place where I'm going to want to use it. So if I take that one-page summary prompt, I'm just going to head and copy and paste it. I'll come over into Copilot, and once I actually get to the page that I wanted to tackle, I'll do this one just as an example, right? I'll make a little bit of space. I know because it's only one sentence, it's not going to require a whole lot of space. I'll come in and paste that prompt, use the one sentence and summarize this, and we'll let it rip. Okay, beautiful. Well, I'll go ahead and copy and paste that. Right. And then all I do to tag it is I come back to the beginning, and this is where now I'm just going to go Control 7, and that's tagging. So that's why using the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for your most popular tags is helpful, because now you don't even have to go looking for that tag. You can just go ahead and put it in there. So let me pause for a second here, right? Because I know I've just covered a lot of ground in the first half, right? We're coming up on the first half. Right. So we're talking about thinking about how do you template some of what goes onto your pages consistently, right? So, and then also how do you speed things up to just make sure that there's enough consistency in how you're organizing your pages inside your notebooks to lend themselves well to easily searching for things and easily retrieving and finding things, right? So what questions do you have? Anything popping out? Did I go through anything too quickly that you want me to go back? There's more, we've got more to give you, but I don't want to go too far without giving you a chance to kind of ask questions and kind of plug in here. At 100, we're probably in a place where we can get away with some questions. So feel free to ask questions. Everybody still with me? You still there? No questions rolling in? Super clear, right? Clear as mud? All right, cool. I'm going to take that as a good sign. We'll keep going then. You keep thinking about kind of how you work, because the most important thing is to build your system. You can also absolutely, you could create a tag from the prompts. I love that. Um, so the way we're thinking about this is we're thinking about how do you customize your notebooks and your system, your process around the way you work best. So some people like to organize first and then fit everything into the organized system. Some people like to dump everything and then go back and organize. I don't honestly have a preference. I think both of those are really appropriate. Neither one is right or wrong, as long as you've built your process to accommodate one of those. It's when people get caught in the middle that it's a problem, right? They build the system, but then they don't actually put anything in the system. They start dumping things, kind of willy-nilly into their notebooks. And then the notebooks start to get really messy and out of control, right? And that can feel rough for some people. So depending on your approach, I would say choose one way or the other. Either you're going to be the person that dumps everything in and then organizes, or you're the person that creates the template and then organizes your notes around those. Right? When you search by date, is it sorted by created date or last day visit? You have either option on that. So if you hit that drop down, it gives you the choice of either date created or date modified. All right, either one. So you've got choices there. Right. The only thing that ever gets tricky about OneNote is that it has a tenant. It always wants to put the most recent thing on the bottom. So just know that if you're sorting it the other way, which I do, I like to sort the most recent thing to the top so that I have easy access to it. You may have to do that every time you put something new in just to get it to resort to the top. So that's kind of the only downside there. Right. Any other questions on that? All right, cool. Um, I want to just kind of dive, kind of staying with this idea of what are some of the templates that seem to serve people really well. One of the ones that I want to kind of roll back into is the idea of the dashboard, or your place for kind of the capture everything. And this leads into the reason I said just a few moments ago that some people like to dump and then organize. This is one where I dump and then organize, and which is, it's basically going to be the meetings. It is really typical for me to come up on a meeting, go ahead and dump my notes into the meeting, and then get those meeting notes organized afterwards, right? Especially with AI. AI, I think, changes the world where that's concerned, where we really have the ability to just dump and then organize with with a little bit of AI prompting there. So really kind of thinking about it that way. The place where I flip that on its head is the weekly review. And so I've talked about this a couple times, so this is a good time for me to kind of take a look at what that actually looks like. When I'm a big fan of doing some kind of daily planning and doing some kind of weekly planning. Um, I weekly plan around this template, and I shared this with you in the notes as well, just to give you, everyone has the ability certainly um, to create your own structure around this, or whatever works better for you. But what I wanted you to see, the value of this was having one section called weekly review and one section for next actions. And the value of this is that you can set up your template, and then every time I hit add page, it's going to give me my blank template. And then what I do at that point in the game is I'll go ahead and put the next week's, right, whatever that coming week's date is on that. So I'll come in here and go ahead and put that in as, I don't even know what next Friday's date is, something like, I guess I should look so that it's accurate anyway. All right, so the 6th. Yeah, I thought it was the 6th. I don't know why I didn't go with my gut on that one. So in this case, I'm coming in and I'm going 26 and March and 6 and kind of creating that space for that new one. But the kind of the critical pieces for me are always the wins, the top 3 priorities, the open loops, the key decisions, and the next actions. That when I review my week, that's what I'm looking at. Now, I don't wait to the end of the week to actually do that review. That's just kind of the final line. But you see what I'm saying when I say, like, I'll pull that up to the top so that that's the most recent. But the one that I'm working in right now is this one, right? So this is my week, and I'll do a final review of this at the end of the week on Friday, so that way I can see. And you can see I've clearly used AI to organize some of this, right? Because it's gone in and given me links and things like that. So this is one of those kind of, I think one of those, you're setting yourself up, even if you're not a big AI user right now, you're getting closer and closer when you start templating things, because then AI has the template. So when I created this template back at the beginning of February, I said, you know what, from this point forward, I'm going to go ahead and create the prompt that says, okay, right, I have 2 prompts that work with this. And for those of you who are ChatGPT users, this is definitely my ChatGPT prompt. I put it on my phone. I open it up to voice when I'm driving someplace, moving from one place to another. And I just open it up on voice and leave it and set it down. And I say something like this: ChatGPT, I am now going to dump everything that's in my brain out, and I need you to not interrupt, but occasionally say yes if you've got it. Now you have to say that, because otherwise she'll just talk every single time that you say anything, right? So she'll want to like reinforce you and say nice things to you and things like that. And I just want to hear yes, right? That's all I need. So I'm telling her specifically, like, just let me go, let me dump everything out, and please just say yes to confirm. And I do that sometimes all day long throughout the course of the day, where if I'm running really fast, I'm just brain dumping into chat. At the end of the day, I take those notes and I apply this prompt to it that you see on the screen. Okay, you're an extremely organized executive assistant. Organize these notes into the following buckets, right? And that's who actually organizes me by wins, top 3 priorities, open loops, key decisions, and next actions, right? So you know, that way for me of having a place to drop everything in is super valuable. Now, when I do this, there's always going to be things that don't fit neatly in those categories, and that's okay, right? Because those all show up right at the very bottom as uncategorized. And then I can do that. That's kind of what informs me about my system. What else do I need to categorize so that I can easily pull those over, right? But that's how I'm organizing my kind of daily thoughts and weekly thoughts, so that way when I come in for my weekly review, I'm preparing for an operational meeting that we have on Monday mornings. So I do this at the end of the day on Friday. I make sure that I've done this, I've kept this as up to date as I possibly can, right? And that way I'm easily ready to go and pick up with the following week, right? As I move right into that same space. So any questions? So you can see what's in my work hub, my dashboard, right? This really just labels it. This is like instructional about how to use this book, my weekly summary, my next actions, daily logs of any kind, right? Can be in here. Meeting notes are in here, big projects, archives, big ideas, right? What I call big thinking. Doing a lot in ChatGPT these days, right? So right now, that's like the one project I wanted to be part of my dashboard. So I've got a tab in there, but that could be anything for you, but really keeping one notebook. The beauty of this is that you can always move from here. So if I have a meeting with a client, for example, and when I'm done taking those notes, right, and I'll just use this as an example. When I'm done with the notes on this, I could easily then move this into another notebook just by dragging that, right? Or if I want to keep the notes kind of quickly handy, one of the other things I wanted to talk to you about today was linkages, right? Was using the links in notebooks so that way you don't have to keep either copying pages over or moving pages over and not where they are. You can always, if you really believe you need something in two different places, it's never a bad idea to go ahead and actually move it to those two places. So for example, right, if I'm here in my weekly review and I know that there's an open loop right here, right? These are decisions that need to be made, right, in this particular area. So I'm going to come to this open loop if I want to, right? And this is where if you right click on it, you've always got two options. I can always link to this, or I can always copy a link that I'm going to go put someplace else. So in this case, I'm going to copy the link to that paragraph. Right. So I'm taking that right into my next review, and I'm going to bring it down here because it's something that needs to be addressed. Right. And so I'm going to bring it down and actually put it into the open loop for next week. So those are still sitting open, and I don't want to necessarily, and all I did was paste, right? So it's a copy and paste. So a specific kind of copy and paste, right? So when I'm here, you right click, and when you right click, you'll get the option of copying a link to the paragraph. And when I come into the new space, rather than copy and paste them all over again, right? I want to be able to change them, by the way, in one place, which is why here I'll just go ahead and put them in and link them as opposed to copy and paste. Otherwise, I'll have to go change two different places. So that saves us. We use that over and over and over again. Right, so if you're not using linking, that's how the links work. Now, the other way, by the way, just to be clear, is that you can also go the other way, certainly. So I can certainly come in here instead of starting in the other place. It all depends on where you start from. So I can come in here and I can once again right click, and this time I'm actually linking to something. Right. So I know where I am. Now I want to go out and actually find something that, we'll say for all intents and purposes is something, let's say it's a win, and I want to bring it over. I want to bring the notes from it over here. So that's where I could come over. I could grab something that I see as a win. We'll take Allianz, for example, right? And I'll bring that over here as an OK, right? So I'm pulling the linkage in. So when you start from the place that you're linking to, you use copy the link, copy to paragraph. And when you start from the place you want to pull it to, you use link. So it's one goes one way, one goes the other. Does that make sense? So both of these link, right? So if I click that one, it takes me back to that section or that page, right? And if I click this one, it takes me it all was just a question of what I started with, where I started. You can go either way. Any questions on linking while we're here? No questions on linking? Everybody feels good about linking? One of the other ways, remember, you can use linking is to actually create a table of contents. So recently visited pages. Let me think about that one for a second. The only way I can think of, yeah, I was just going to say, the only way I could think of would be to do something really basic here. This sounds like a weird one, but this is kind of cheating the system, and I can't think of another way to do this, so I'll cheat the system. If you know that you have something as minimal on there as, well, the back button certainly, but that's only going to go back so far. And if you've left it, you're not necessarily going to get there, right? I can only, like, if I've left it and come back, that back button's just not going to keep working for me. See, it only, in OneNote, that just doesn't go very far, right? So the cheat that I'm kind of thinking of for you is, if you know you've really touched it recently and you have something as minimal as the letter A on it, by doing that, it will always show you the most recent stuff. So that's why I'm like, well, let's try this, right? So those first ones might show you anything that you recently touched. I don't know. That's a little bit of a cheat. I might have to think more about that one to come up with a better alternative to it. So let me show you the table of contents, because I think that can be helpful especially in team notebooks. So if I'm working in this, and probably my best example of this, let's see. Yeah, this would be a pretty good one, I think, right? If I was trying to if I'm working with an onboarding situation, and you could do this with any notebook really. In fact, I'll use the one that I was just working with just to show you the example. If I came out to the dashboard and on the very first page, I wanted to come up and put a welcome page if other people were going to be able to use this. And the last time we were together, we talked about what should be on a welcome page, and you would put all of your welcome page data on there, right? And one of the things that you might do, so let's just say I'm going to insert my page template that gives me my welcome to the team notebook with kind of all the key questions that might be on there. Nice. Now I'm going to go ahead and put a table of contents, and I could do that above and beyond. Doesn't really matter. I'll do that, I guess, down here and just roll it up for you. But I want to go ahead and put a table of contents in here. This is where you could do it, is you could absolutely go out and just create those linkages. So if I'm sitting on the weekly review, this is where I can go ahead and copy a link to that section and come back here and hit control paste, right? And then I could go to the next one, and maybe I want it at the tab level. So I'll copy the link to the section, right? But then when I get out a little bit further, let's just say, for example's sake, that I actually want something on a page as opposed to that section heading. So maybe I come out here and I want my Allianz OneNote, right, as my example. I can come down to the page in this case, right? So it doesn't have to be a section. And right click, copy link to paragraph, back to the dashboard, right? Next part of the table of contents. So you can go at a page level, you can go to paragraph level, you can go to section level. But by the time you've done, if you feel like there were just a handful of key sections that you're using a lot or that other people are going to a lot, and specifically this is really helpful at a page level where if you've got a bunch of different things on a page and you want to get there, coming out to the page and maybe even scrolling down to the specific paragraph that you were looking for. So maybe I'm trying to get down here and I want to go ahead and right click, copy link to paragraph, come back to my dashboard, drop that in, right? Control V. And now I've got this table of contents of like the 4 top things that I'm hitting. So in each case, it's going to bring me right to that specific thing. Right, so a fairly easy way to create a table of contents as part of your welcome page. And again, you could put that up at the top if you wanted to, or you could put that a little bit further down, but that's going to give you really easy access to any of those links. Now, by the way, when you're linking to a page in OneNote, it doesn't have to just be someplace else in OneNote. So you could decide, for example, that this is a place where you want to go ahead and build a link to something else. So just for example's sake, right, when I go to link, right, going to somewhere else here works, but also going anywhere else in your folder system also works, right? So I could pull out and actually pull into something that's in my download, like the learning guide, right, and hit OK. And now I've got access to that learning guide right from here. So to the actual file. So it could be files that you're linking in here, or we'll do it one more time. This time I'll do it from the menu, just so you know you don't always have to right click. If you want to, you can come up and actually hit links. And this could be a link to a website. So if I click the website, I could drop a web address in here. So just for example's sake, I could drop in Google. Right. And now I've created a link to Google in here, right, where you can't see it, but it's showing up on the other screen every time I hit it. It's pulling open. So if you know that, again, there's some particular access to that makes sense to you because you want to be able to have that easy access to a website that you're pulling information from into your notebook, that's the way to get the linkages to those. So now you have everything kind of exactly where you want it. Okay, so that's linkages. Ask me questions. You're so quiet today. Everybody okay? We're hitting some stuff. Okay. Let me roll back up or down as the case may be. All right, we'll roll back into our notebook. So we've talked about the tags, we've talked about the weekly review template, right, where we've laid in some template sections. We've talked about kind of the linkages to be able to get there, right? Use of the templates to get there. I even included my little pro tip here for speeding up your weekly review by using it to actually paste your meeting page in and have it summarize, have it extract your action items with owners and due dates, right? So that it's actually putting stuff into it. So it's easy for you to just paste and review, right? That allows you to create this dashboard. So what would be in the dashboard, right? You've got your weekly reviews, you've got your top 3 or 5 current projects, your links to both your recurring meetings as well as any hot meetings for the week that you want to make sure that you're doing the right amount of preparation for. Maybe you even have a parking lot section of things that you're just not quite sure what to do with yet, right? But you're trying to find a place to nail those down. And you've created linkages from those pages to the other notebooks where it's appropriate, because nobody wants to create a dashboard and then go steal everything out of the notebook that they have it in. Now, as we've been working together, one of the things I've been asking you to do is to just think about, are you still kind of a one notebook wonder? Or are you now getting to that place where you're starting to think about all the different notebooks that you'd like to have, right? Where there are different notebooks that serve different purposes. So let me come back to you and just ask for, right? Like, give me some feedback on this. Do you feel like you're thinking harder about what the different value? Because when we first talked, a lot of you just had one notebook, right? So how many notebooks do you have now? Let me ask that question. See if we're kind of expanding the use. Better? Oh, Chris, you're a rock star, man. He's got 20 notebooks. 28 notebooks. So we're getting there. It looks like we're averaging probably about 3 or 4. Average might be going up just a little bit. Yeah, that's going to be one of the challenges to you, I think, going forward, because this is, OneNote usage begets OneNote usage. That's just the reality. When it comes to being a really power user in OneNote, it really does come down to making sure that it becomes your first thought. Just like we say, lead with AI, think AI first. Is this something AI could help me with? I think we say the same thing when you're a OneNote user, right? Which is, if you really do get committed to doing most of your storage inside of OneNote, it gets easier to find things, not harder, because it's just the first place you go, right? If you've stored something, that it's a likelihood that there's only 2 places things tend to exist. And that's going to be in your file system, SharePoint or OneDrive, or if it's not a file, but it's instead loose notes, it's going to be in OneNote. And when you can consistently and confidently say that, finding things gets so much easier. So one of the ways I gauge that is just to think about how many notebooks you're actually using, because usually, at least, the higher the level or the higher the number of notebooks, the more usage you're finding, right? That you're actually putting enough information in here that you're starting to really divide this up and get to a place where you've got a lot of notebooks that are in play. So I think that's super valuable when you're there. Because then you really are, I think, getting the best usage, because you're much more inclined to actually go search it. The other thing, now that I know so many of you are using Copilot, we'll do a quick little preview, a little bit of a preview of something we'll talk more about when we get together in our next part, right? Where we talk about the linkage between these tools and other tools. One of the kind of the previews here, and somebody just asked a question about Copilot.
Fabiani did. She
What
was
was the
asking
question?
whether or not we have the integration into OneNote.
Yeah.
And I don't believe we do. I am not the expert though. So if someone else is more of an expert than me, but I believe that we would have to go through Teams to use our OneNote.
Okay.
Yeah, which is really not a problem, right? Like, to use it over there, because and it's just an interesting question about the integration. That's one that we may want to just ask more questions about and see, kind of see what the thinking is there to not link it. But the value is just to have access to. Let me ask this question: is it approved, or are people approved in using ChatGPT?
We are supposed to be using our internal ChatGPT, which is an Allianz version.
Yeah.
for anything that
Yeah.
involves company information. So we're not allowed to use ChatGPT. No.
In general, right? But you're using the one that's gated, which is good, right? That's exactly as you want it. And honestly, the same thing is true of Copilot, right? You want to be using the Copilot that comes with your system, because that automatically gives you the safety and security. Because part of the enterprise versions of these is that there is a promise by each of those tools, Microsoft as well as OpenAI, make this promise that says if you're using enterprise version, then we don't train our LLMs on your data, right? And your data is safe, and it's no different than when you log in and you write an email, right? Because it's behind your login and your password, it's secure and it's safe and it's encrypted. Right? And all of that kind of keeps it in that place. Copilot does the same thing. Enterprise version of ChatGPT does the same thing, right? Which it sounds like that's what you've got, is you've got some enterprise version that Allianz has customized specifically to make sure that the guardrails are on, right? And it's not going anywhere. The reason I bring that up is because I think sometimes people are kind of waiting for it to show up in their app. And if it doesn't, and I'm just going to be brutally honest here, Microsoft Copilot is not as good as Chat. It's just not yet. It will be someday, but it's not. So if you've got the Allianz version of Chat, I would suggest, honestly, in most cases, that's going to work better for you. So don't consider it like, oh, we don't have it right there in OneNote. Doesn't matter, because even when it's in OneNote, it's actually in a separate window. And you saw what I had to do. I still had to go copy and paste it out of that separate window and onto my page. So yours is no different. You just have to go use the Allianz ChatGPT, right, and copy and paste your notes into it. Ask for the summary, ask for the action items, and then copy and paste that summary back out onto a OneNote page. Still give you the exact same thing. Does that make sense? Cool. Any other questions about that level of usage? All right, cool. So just a couple of other places to kind of consider when we think about kind of some of those more advanced tips and advanced tools. Right. I don't want to kind of lose some of the ones that I think are really super useful the more you're using it like this. So one of those is really the dictate, right? So that ability to either transcribe a meeting or that ability to actually dictate right in for notes is another super, super easy to use, but really valuable tool. So I spend an awful lot of time just hitting dictate and dropping notes right in directly into my OneNote. And again, I'm a big fan of keeping things as mobile as I can. So I do that with my OneNote phone app just as well, right? Just as easily, where I'll dictate into the phone. And again, that's going to show up. That's going to synchronize with your OneNote if you have access to it there. Does that make sense? Right. So really using any of those tools. One other tool I just wanted to check while I had you, Indiana, too, is I know we talked about this last time, but did we decide you had Loop? Where you'd see it, if you take a look on the screen, where you'd see it
Yeah,
is under the insert option.
we do. Yep.
Ah, okay. So that's where we'll end our advanced conversation today. We're going to spend 5 minutes on Loop just to get you thinking about kind of that usage of it. So right? So where you find Loop, and the thing I wanted to tell you about Loop is that Loop is actually another application all in and of itself. So typical of Microsoft, right? Nothing stands alone these days. So just as you can bring OneNote into Teams and be able to see your OneNote notebooks while you're in Teams, you can also bring your loops into OneNote and your loops into Teams and your loops into Outlook and pretty much all the other applications, because loops stand alone. Loops are super valuable because, and the primary thing that makes them valuable is that they're synchronized. So if I come into just an empty page and I say, okay, team, we're about to have a meeting. Now I could use my top section grid, but I could use loop, and loop gives me even more power. So let me show you what loop would do. So if I came into loop at this point in the game, if you hit the drop down on loop, you're going to see there are different types of loops. The most commonly used one is going to be either the checklist or the task list, right? For me, I would say we probably use the task list more than anything else. So I'm going to go ahead and bring a loop task list in, right? And we'll open up that task list. Now you can add other components. You don't have to stop at that, but all it's going to do is automatically name that loop with whatever the name of my page is. So if I had, you can imagine if I had called this ops meeting, right? It would have named it ops meeting instead. So I'll pop in here and actually add another
Hey,
loop
Deb,
into, yep, go ahead.
we're having trouble finding the capability to see loop within OneNote. Does anyone on the call have it in OneNote and could share how to get that? We have the capability, but I don't know if it's in OneNote.
Okay, so when you're clicking on insert, it typically would show up between links and transcribe. If you're
Yeah.
not seeing it,
Not there, no.
well, I would try,
I can see.
Indiana, try
Yeah, I
one more
can see
spot.
loop in Teams, but not in OneNote.
Oh, okay. All right.
Maybe
Now that makes sense. I just want to check because again, this is another question for IT is whether or not they just haven't added access to it, but let's just take one look, right? If you go into customize the ribbon, so if I right click on the ribbon and hit customize the ribbon, this will really tell you whether or not you actually have access to it or not. So under insert, right? So from this page, if you look at right all the commands that are under insert and then look under collaborate, if it's accessible, you'll see it over here. So you can, for example, come down to commands not in the ribbon, right? Or you could come down to just all commands and then search under C for collaborate. So you'd roll down here. Now mine's already in, right? So you'd roll down through your commands and just look and see if the word loop comes up anywhere or collaborate comes up anywhere. Right. If you don't see it, then yeah, it sounds like they haven't added it in as a potential part of your system other than Teams, which happens, right? And so then it's just a question of, do they have any intention? Is it part of the rollout? You just haven't gotten to that part of the rollout, or do they have no intention of adding Loop into OneNote? Because it's definitely a possibility once you have it, right? But nonetheless, even if you don't, right, even if you only have it over in Teams, you can still copy and paste it from Teams. So you can create your loop over in Teams and copy and paste it over here into OneNote. Right, so so just as an example, let me see if I can drag this over here. All right, are you seeing my Teams right now?
Yes.
And all we want to do is we want to see if you have the ability to bring loop into your toolbar on the left-hand side. So if you don't have it there right now, if you hit the either the three dots to take a look and see if you see it, or hit add app and then just type loop at the top and see if it comes up. Right. And if it comes up, then we know we're in the right spot here, right? Then we know you're able to actually, now mine doesn't come up because I've already have it here, but if you type loop, it should come up there. If it does, then just go ahead and add it. Then it will show up in your toolbar. So just know that once it shows up in your toolbar, then you can create a loop at any time and even just copy and paste it right into your OneNote if that's where you want it to live. So a little bit of a workaround way to get there. But if loop seems like it has value for you, and I would say it does, just because again, it's a great way in a meeting to keep track of your tasks, right? So I can put an ABC task, I can go ahead and assign that to anybody on my team with a date, and it's going to automatically show up as a to-do for Dorinda because it's in that loop. And the same thing, she's going to see it. So you can see her typing. She's saying, give those tasks to somebody else is what she's writing. I know what that, I know what that message is, but you can see what it does is this is live. I can see that she's in it right now. So she got immediate access to it. And you could copy this loop to anywhere. So you can keep it here in OneNote, keep it in Teams. You could even copy and paste this right into an email and send it. And Loop gives you a real-time task table that allows you to keep track of your tasks. And by the way, and Dorinda, do me a favor, just go ahead and check that ABC task is done. Right, so I could see real time when she's actually completed that task, right? So this is always going to be updated wherever it lives. That's the beauty of a loop, is it keeps everybody looped in. All right, we did it again. Somehow we blew through an hour. It is top of the hour here, so I'm going to let you go. All right, try to be conscious of everyone's time. There's more coming as we start to look at kind of some of these synchronizations, and yeah, we'll see you. What's the date and date of part 4, Indiana? You always know it better faster than I do.
Yes, I believe it is on St. Patrick's Day. So we are looking at the 4th one coming on March 17th, which is a Tuesday from 2 to 3 p.m.
Nice.
Integration.
Excellent. So I'll be wearing green or drinking green beer, one or the other. You make the choice. Have a great few weeks, folks.
Thank you everyone for participating today. Have a great afternoon.
Awesome. And thanks for answering